Well, hi everyone. This is a new edition of Reline Unknown. I am joined today by Josh Mallamud. He is the CEO of Cartegraph. Thank you for joining me today, Josh.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, so Josh and I have both read a lot about the American Society of Civil Engineers report card. We're going to dive into some of that today. We're going to get a little background on what Cartegraph does because I was really new to this company um, when you guys reached out to me. So I did a little research on my own, but I'd like to hear kind of your perspective of it as well, Josh, because I think it might be a new technology to a lot of people for Reline Unknown. So they might like the background. So I think we'll just kick it off there. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little background about yourself, Josh, how you kind of got into this industry, and then maybe give us a little background on Cartegraph.
Yeah, no, happy to, Cassie. So I started my career as an attorney and a management consultant. Don't hold that against me. I'm almost recovered from being an attorney, and about sort of 10 years into that, I decided that I really wanted to sort of go to the other side of the table and actually operate businesses, and specifically technology businesses. I had the opportunity to start a company in China in software and technology. Learned a tremendous amount there, and sort of it's been sort of never looked back from there. I was brought in to run Cartegraph about 3 years ago in a change of ownership, and we'll get much more into what we do as a company as we move forward. But couldn't be happier with the move.
Awesome. Yeah, attorney to technologist. That is a different transition.
It's better on this side, I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, I went from technology to pipe, so I really have no room to say anything on career changes. I spent 15 years marketing tech companies, and now I own a pipe company. So, life leads you in interesting places.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, give me a little bit of background on Cartograph. I know you guys are a software-based company. Kind of tell me how you feel like when you saw Reline Unknown and my podcast, where you see like Cartograph kind of fitting in that Reline solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really an exciting fit. So Cartegraph is a software company. We have a platform that municipalities use to manage their operations and maintenance activities on critical infrastructure. And so they use the platform to understand what assets they have, where those assets are located, what condition they're in, and from that they can understand what work needs to be done to them. Then they can handle the work, sort of manage the work orders, provision the people and the materials and equipment to get that work done, and then track it all. So over time, we really partner with our customers to help them use the platform to foster more data-driven decision-making around maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, helping them move to more of a proactive stance, more preventative maintenance, less reactive work when things break. Of course, there's both, and there always will be, but the more you can do up front in planning around preventative, sort of the better you're able to manage those infrastructure assets over a long period of time in a way that optimizes the life of those assets. And so that's what really we're about, and that's what the collaboration with our customers and our partners are, makes us so excited about it.
So when you say infrastructure assets, you're talking, are you, because I mean, my brain immediately goes to the pipe world, right? So you're talking probably potable water, sewer pipes, you're talking storm drainage. Are you the whole system overview?
Yeah, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is being comprehensive.
Yeah.
So infrastructure owners, especially municipalities and higher education institutions we work with, own a wide variety of infrastructure assets, sort of inside, outside, above and below ground, across water, transportation, even living assets like vegetation and trees, which is an expanded area for us. But we see the whole ecosystem of infrastructure as interconnected, and our platform is really built from the ground up to embrace that and to help these infrastructure owners optimize the maintenance and ultimately performance of those assets over a long period of time.
Okay,
and so
that's very cool.
Tons and tons of pipes.
Yeah, tons. And they're definitely failing because that's what I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. But also
I
they
never
run
thought,
under, they run under streets, so you have to kind of
yeah,
understand, things like that. So there's
yeah.
that activity.
We deal with a lot of DOTs and the highways and stuff. So, and then of course the local counties that own all the streets within the city limits and stuff. So it
Mhm.
gets to be it gets to be interesting when I do figure out who manages what roads and what storm drains. I never thought to ask you, it just dawned on me, are you guys, Cartograph, going to be exhibiting or attending the Underground Construction Technology Show in Nashville?
I would have to check with our marketing department, but we're certainly at shows like that all the time.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, that would be
I just
sounds like
made
a
the
great one
decision
for
a
us.
couple days ago to go. It happens to be over my birthday in July, but I have always wanted to do true Nashville, so I think I'm going to do it.
Nashville's great. It's
Yeah,
great.
I think it'll be fun. So let's dive into this report card a little bit. I think that I mean, you and I both read it, but I think it'll be interesting to get your perspective on it. I obviously looked at it from infrastructure on pipe reline, but I'd like to see, kind of get a feel for what you think what you took away from it when you read it. So the report card I'm referring to, just so everyone's clear, is the American Society of Civil Engineers. It was the 2021 report card. I think this is the first time they gave us I think we got a D this year, right, Josh?
It was a C minus this year. We've been in the D range for a while, so
Okay, C minus. So
I
we're
suppose that's a
improving.
step up, but
My mom would have killed me with a C minus though in most of my classes. So,
for sure.
um, so what do you think it means for the future of our infrastructure, and why do you think that we went from a D to a C minus? Because I don't feel, from my end, especially last year when COVID hit, like we had a screeching halt on infrastructure repairs. Like no one wanted to spend money, everybody was holding on to budgets. And then you fast forward to January of this year, at least for my business, and we went leaps and bounds forward. Like it's almost like everyone put the brakes on last year, and then we got to this year and they went, crap, now we're a year behind. So it's spend, spend, spend. Let's start getting these projects done.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and I think you know, few different sort of threads of reaction to this, but I do think that cities and counties especially needed to deal with the pandemic. This was a completely sort of
Yeah,
unexpected, massive sort of disruption, and a lot of the work that went around responding to the pandemic directly fell on the shoulders of local government workers. And so I think they sort of put the brakes on the sort of normal work because they had to focus on that. I think they got, really remarkably quickly got a handle on how to deal with it, at least from sort of an operational perspective, taking guidance obviously from other entities, and then we're able, by sort of the summer when things, I think the pandemic receded in a lot of places, and sort of got a handle on it a little bit more, went back to the work of government, which is really around maintaining infrastructure and operating, and it's
right.
critically important to everything we do in society. So I think that happened, and then there was some nice stimulus money that they were able to use toward the end of the year from the first stimulus. I think that second one, or the CARES Act money that went directly to states and through them to cities and counties. And now in this latest stimulus, I think there'll be more money for things like that. So I think it was sort of helpful in the way that evolved. And that's why you saw this sort of rush to infrastructure. I thought that, to infrastructure management and maintenance, there was some interesting, I thought, very sort of forward-looking and almost opportunistic behavior by the cities and counties, where, when we had those big lockdowns and no one was on the roads, there were some really innovative cities and counties that actually took advantage of those opportunities and did big maintenance
Yeah,
projects that they couldn't really do without disrupting traffic too much and business activity too much. But
yeah.
in the lockdowns, they were able to do that. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's interesting what states, um, because I focus on the Northwest states where you see probably a lot more in the Midwest living there. Um, it's interesting what states decided to really jump and do what you're saying. They were like, oh, wait, people aren't driving to work anymore because we're all working from home. And so what states use that opportunity. Like the state of Washington actually did some proactive stuff in the bigger cities like Seattle. But then you like Oregon, Portland did almost nothing. The city, the state, like they just went into complete lockdown and didn't move forward with things. So it definitely was a different perspective depending on where you were.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there'll be some great lessons coming out of this, where, you think about our states and local municipalities being, sort of giving the opportunity to pilot different ideas. And I think some states really did a great job and municipalities. And, hopefully there'll never be a next time, but to the extent there's sort of massive disruption like this, hopefully those lessons will be gleaned and the ones that worked will be put forward to other counties and cities.
How did you see it affect your business last year versus this year? Now that that report card is out and we do have that stimulus money, we've gotten some, and there's still that bill pending. I think it's on Biden's desk now for another huge stimulus for infrastructure. What do you see that doing for our businesses?
Yeah, no, I think it's really good news. And if you talk about the sort of overall more global reaction to the report card, I do think it's a wake up call for maybe there have been several wake up calls in the past, but I certainly think that there's one now. And C minus, to your point, your mom would have killed you.
Yeah,
Like our mom, America's mom should kill us. I mean, that is not a good grade.
no,
And as a global leader and a superpower, and the most robust economy in the world, I think we have a duty to maintain our infrastructure and really have the best infrastructure in the world. And to be honest, we don't. I had the opportunity, I think I mentioned before, to start a business in China in 2010, which was a period of time in China that was sort of really rapid ascension when the rest of the world's economy was struggling after the financial crisis. And I
right.
saw firsthand how massive and directed and really smart infrastructure investment propelled that economy. It lifted people out of poverty, brought people into the workforce, bolstered their competitiveness on the global stage, and also made them, sort of in a lot of ways, like with the Beijing, I think starting with the Beijing Olympics and then the Shanghai, World Expo, having all these people sort of going to China for travel, was a showcase on how sort of they had become more modern and a real player on the global stage. And I think that to me showed that America was falling behind and we really needed to compete on this stage as well. And so I think it's terrific that there is more attention on this. I think the report card is great. I think putting a focused amount of investment into this will have a strong ROI for our economy in terms of GDP growth over multiple years. And I was also impressed that the report card focused on what I believe are the right things, which are like it's really tempting to get sort of allured by these big fancy construction projects, like a beautiful new airport that's designed by the sort of best architect and or beautiful, sort of a really interesting bridge. But what really like makes our infrastructure better and what we really need to do, and the report card absolutely sort of focused on this, is just good, best, sort of applying best practices to asset management, thinking about that portfolio of infrastructure assets as a whole, making the right trade-off decisions between maintain and replace. And you can't maintain everything. You do need to replace some things, and when you do it, you should do it right. But by making proactive decisions and really leveraging data, we can get much more performance out of the assets we have, just by maintaining them in the right way. And I saw a strong sort of nod to that in the report card. And I thought that was very impressive. And it also acknowledged the role of local government in this. I think local government workers are really the heroes in this story, because that's where the rubber hits the road, and that's where we can really move the needle on our grade by employing these best practices and just properly maintaining these assets.
Well, and I think that you're going to see this even more so than I do, but I know like in our business, we don't see a lot of technology in local government being utilized to the extent where, you know, I used to work for a very progressive tech company of quite a few of them, but it's almost like there's this B2B and local government doesn't really consider themselves in that. So it is nice to see though, and I'm sure you see more of it. You know, I've been working with a few DOTs that are implementing technology within their local governments and all their different regions. Because, you know, depending on where you're at, Oregon has 18 regions for DOTs, where Utah has, I think, 8. So, but anyway, they're implementing technology to start tracking what you're saying, where they're actually looking, at least like from my perspective, they're looking at all the pipes, and now they're trying to figure out, how do you have a rating system? What kind of technology can we use to rate when these pipes either need to be repaired or we need to replace them? And looking at their entire infrastructure of just Utah example alone, I think they said they have 80,000 culverts in the state. That's a lot, and that's just stormwater culverts. That's a lot of culverts to have to manage, and they need to know when they need to start being concerned about some versus others. But they came to us and said, have you seen a technology like this? And, you know, what can we do without, short of physically sending someone out to 80,000 culverts and rating it? What can be done? And, you know, I have to put my cap on and say, there's got to be a technology out there that does this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There are, and there's sort of remote inspection and using drones and all sorts of just remote sensing technology is proliferating and on the rise. And those, you know, we partner with a lot of those companies, and I think it's exciting to see that, you know, to your point, local governments really are recognizing that technology can be the solution, and they really can do, you know, more with less, which they're always asked to do.
Yeah.
But can really leverage technology to do that in a way that's exciting, I think, you know, for us as users of that infrastructure, but then for the government workers who have to work with it.
Well, and it's also, it's a shortage of people right now. I mean, I just read an article this morning that here locally in Idaho, with the Idaho Transportation Department, ITD, has just sent a request to the governor to increase pay across the board because they cannot hire enough good people at the rates and wages that they are approved by the state of Idaho. And so they're having to go to the governor to get more money, to say the only way we're going to be able to stay in front of the infrastructure here locally, even just in Boise, is to pay people more to get good people. And so they're going to have to get creative with technology to I mean, I hate to say to replace a human hand, but it's true. If we have a shortage of people to do things, then technology is going to have to fill that role, right?
Yeah, and I think it can make each person, you know, more productive and more fulfilled in their job. I think there's plenty of work to do to fill, to your point, to fill. There aren't enough people to fill all the jobs that infrastructure owners have, and even today. And, you know, we see that going up, you know, dramatically over the next, you know, 5, 10, 20 years as America leans in on infrastructure. I mean, this is a multi-decade problem, and one that'll take, you know, decades to fix. But we see that theme, Cassie, all the time across our, you know, 700-800 municipalities that we work with across the country. They are all finding it difficult to hire, you know, the right team members to do the work. So that's an issue, and you know, I've seen estimates that there are as many as 3 million local government workers who are ready to retire or may be retiring in the next several years, and so that problem's just going to get exacerbated. And I think technology is the only way that you can plug that.
Yeah.
And it's not only just the workers to do the work, which is really important, but also the knowledge that those senior employees have in their heads on how to do things right. That know-how is you know, a massive asset that these governments need to figure out how to keep. And I think technology can be part of the answer to that as well.
So what would be a few examples in your mind of what local governments, I mean, because you've probably already seen it from some of your customers, what they can do in the short term, whether it's in the next 6 months, the next 2 years, kind of things they can implement to really bring immediate change within their systems, I guess is a good way to word it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think it's really the blocking and tackling of asset management. So asset maintenance management. So having an accurate inventory of the assets that they have across every infrastructure domain. So water, of course, which is your domain, but transportation and buildings, everything that they manage, knowing what they have, where that is, what condition it's in, and there are to your point, loads of technologies that they can employ to do those inspections without having to sort of inspect every asset through estimation or through remote sensing. And then, really plan the work because we have to do more with less. And so the planning is so important, and leaning in on preventative maintenance so you avoid the much more costly, the much more work intensive reactive maintenance when something breaks. And storing that data and then coming up with a real, a very good asset management program. Platforms like ours can help with aspects of that. And so obviously we think that's part of the solution. That's why we're so excited about doing what we're doing. But taking those steps in whatever form, is really important to them, to sort of getting over this infrastructure hump and, to the country, I think.
So what other technologies does Cartegraph kind of partner with or attach onto or integrate APIs that you guys, you have that relationship in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, with pipes and things that are underground, there's the whole call before you dig
Yes.
platform. So those are probably our most popular integration because they make so much sense, right? You can save so much time and energy by just coordinating those cuts, those street cuts, or any maintenance activity across the different when it's multiple infrastructure owners. And so those platforms are great. These remote sensing or data collection firms that actually do the inspections and collect the inventories.
Mm-hmm.
That's work that, we don't do that work, but we pull that data in so that our clients can have that comprehensive asset registry, knowing what assets they have. So those are important. We're usually the repository for what's more of a, professional services engagement from an engineering firm. And then there are more, sort of exciting ones. Like we worked with the city of Auburn, Washington, on some augmented reality
Oh yeah.
technology they were implementing. So instead of having to dig and figure out what's under the ground, you can actually just sort of look using augmented reality if you have, sort of the right data set. So it's almost like you have X-ray vision through the street. It's not actually that. It's relying
Yeah.
on database,
So you
but
worked with the company and then it pulls in that information and what they see from that technology pulls into Cartegraph software. So it's in there.
that's
Oh, yeah.
right. So when they're using our mobile app, they can actually see what's under the street that they're about to cut and see the pipe network, basically, across water, gas, whatever, fiber, electric, everything that's running under that street.
So do you see a good collaboration between different municipalities? Because I run into this a lot, like, oh, you need to call the public works department. They're the ones who handle that storm drain, right? But then I've got to call the water department when even though there might be a storm drain and then a potable water line right next to it, the public works department doesn't handle the potable water line. That's the water department.
That's
So
right.
yeah, do you see a lot of collaboration? Because I feel like in my world, I don't see them working together the way that they should, right? By sharing these technologies, by sharing this information, this software. If if I'm sitting across the street from you in a different department, do I collaborate and share that information so I make sure we're all working on the same platform
Yeah,
with
no,
the
I think that,
information?
yeah, I think it's a great point, Cassie. And I think there's a real opportunity there.
Yeah,
You think about sort of trying to do more with less in the future because there's just going to be so much work. This kind of
yeah,
collaboration across these sort of department lines and across even municipality lines, especially when they're overlapping. You could have 3 or 4 municipalities in the same spot of land, right? Between
Yes.
city, county, water districts, maybe a park district, some other special district. And there really does need to be collaboration. And I think it isn't a lack of desire to collaborate. I think all of these people want to do the best thing for their constituents and society and manage these assets, right? It's just people are busy and it's hard to coordinate and they don't know exactly who to do it and they sort of got to get their work done.
Right.
Coupled, to your point, the fact that the data isn't really, readily available across department and municipality lines. And so the integration of these platforms or even using the same platform and the same database is a real opportunity because then that collaboration just becomes that much more easy.
That's what I mean, in my head, that's what I'm picturing is, as like you said, especially when you get into these large cities, it's this county, it's this city, it's this municipality, and there's so much crossover that it gets convoluted on who owns what asset. Where if we educate the industry on there are softwares and technologies that will do this for you guys, and if you utilize them across all your different public works departments and all your different departments, then your guys are all working on at least the same starting point of information, right?
Yeah.
And you're not repeating the work.
That's
Because
right.
if I'm county A and I cross over city line B, like I'm sending one person out and then the next day you might be sending one person out. Well, if I had just shared what I had seen the day before, I just saved someone going out, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I picture us needing to educate a lot of our customers, your customers, my customers, on there are things out there that help save time and money.
Yeah. And it opens up real opportunities down the road around like equipment sharing and material
Yeah.
sharing and things like that could just be, facilitated that much more easily.
Yeah. Because I mean, again, going back to the pipe world, it's like, oh, well, such and such county owns the grout pump. And they're like, oh, yeah, but that's not our department. And it's
Mhm.
like, but why don't you just borrow it from that department or lease it or however it is that you guys do this with your assets? Because it doesn't make sense for you to go buy a grout pump when you both don't need a grout pump essentially, right? So I think that's an interesting take on it and on how maybe you're going to see that, hopefully that change within the growing cities and stuff as there is overlap.
Yeah, for sure.
So on a personal note, what do you love about this industry? I mean, you came from an attorney, tech world, starting a business in China, over to, I'm guessing infrastructure was maybe somewhat new to you.
Yeah.
Um, what's your kind of favorite part ever since you've kind of come to Cartegraph?
I love what we do. And it's, I think, the first time in my career where I've been able to connect sort of what I'm passionate about doing with something that actually helps society. When we're successful, I think society does win because cities and counties and higher education institutions are leveraging data to steward the infrastructure better and sort of
Yeah,
moving us up on that grade scale. And it's important work. And the people that we serve, these people who work on infrastructure, are, I think, unsung heroes in a lot of ways. I mean, we take infrastructure for granted, and until it stops working, but it's hard, and it's at times grueling work, and it's difficult work, and it's often under-resourced, and I love the fact that we can help them, do their job better with the technology that we provide, and that in turn helps society. So
yeah.
sort of all in.
It truly is. If you're not in this industry, I mean, like before coming to the pipe world, I never paid attention to any of it. I mean, I lived in DC for 7 years, which has massive infrastructure in place. And I never even thought twice about it. And then I, started selling pipe and getting involved in the pipe world. And now I just notice it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time I see some manhole or some guy crawling out or closing a road, putting up the road detour signs, I just think about it because now it's in my brain.
I think about it, then I see if they're using our software.
Yeah. You're going to have to check on the city of Boise for me. I'll just send me in there. I'll go make a
All
cold
right.
call.
Love it. Yeah, that'd be a great.
The city office is only a half a mile from my condo.
We'll be out there. We'll send someone out.
Yeah. Um, so what do you think you and I can do? I mean, there's always, I love podcasts because there's always, this gets information out, right? What else do you see our companies like ours needing to do though to like educate, make awareness, better inform? I know I work with a lot of engineers who are sometimes shocked at even just the product options that are out there, you know, because I don't represent just one product, I represent 15 different products where I, you know, depending on what you're trying to line and fix, like I probably should have a solution for you. But even they're blown away by some of the technology. Like one of the pipe companies I work with comes out of, you know, Dubai, and they can't believe that there's such cool things being done in other areas of the world that the US is now utilizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot we can do. I think the first thing is really to listen, to understand sort of what, you know, what challenges that they're facing, what problems they're having, what pain points they have, so that we can build our technology to meet those needs, you know, in the future. Obviously, it's sort of
Yeah.
right now versus, you know, a few years down the road, but that's the most important thing. I try to spend a ton of time trying to listen to the market and understand what's challenging, you know, our customers in their daily jobs, not with the software, but you know, in what they're trying to get done. And then I think it's exactly what you're doing. It's educating people on the opportunities, and helping them connect the dots between the pain that they're feeling and the opportunity out there, to leverage technology, and probably demystifying some of these technologies. I think that's one of the things I talk to our team about is, you know, one of our jobs as a technology provider to an industry that isn't, you know, sort of isn't a technology industry, and hasn't necessarily embraced technology, you know, in the past, is really to demystify it all and you know, look through the technology to find really practical solutions that helps people get, you know, more work done faster, you know, with fewer hours. Because otherwise, I think you could just see this kind of rapidly evolving landscape of technology and buzzwords and just throw up your hands and say, well, it's kind of working the way we're doing it, so why try to do it differently? But if we can really be the guides to finding really pragmatic, useful solutions, for our customers that leverage these latest technologies, but do it in a way that makes sense, and fits into the sort of operations of infrastructure owners. I think that's a critical role that we could play, both
Yeah.
ways.
I think technology can be very intimidating. Coming from a tech world, I know, and a marketing background, I know trying to explain a technology, you do have to, like you said, demystify it. You have to make it not so scary to digest and like very in simple terms, here's what we can do for you. If you want to get into the weeds on it, it becomes kind of frightening to even think about because technology can do so much. But just making sure they understand, starting with the basics, and that, you know, even implementing one small thing can
Mhm.
lead to a lot of bigger things, right?
Absolutely.
So just getting our foot in the door with some of those agencies so that they can see that it's not intimidating, it's not going to take away your job, it's going to help you do your job better and quicker and more efficient. And I
Yeah.
think everyone wants that, but they just don't know how to get there.
That's right. And I would add to that, working, and I agree with everything you said, and then, you know, working with, and I think it was implicit in what you said, but working with the right partners can help you de-risk it. So
Yeah.
if it feels risky going in, if you pick the right partners, and to your point, you know, start with dipping your toe in the water on
Yeah.
technology, and then think of it as a long journey. And at
Yeah.
each step in that journey, you have the option not to do anything, right? So that you can sort of cut off the risk that way.
Yeah.
I think that's the right way to do it, and can really help people take that plunge, as you said, and really it's not a plunge, it's just a small splash.
It really is. Yeah. And you know, you hate to say that the older generation doesn't embrace it as quickly, because I do think that they do. You know, my parents use technology to, I would say, an extent that you don't see a lot of 60-year-olds using technology, but they love it, right? It's made their lives easier.
Yeah.
So, but you have to put, I know I had to like kind of nudge them there a little bit. But then you almost get the younger generation because, you know, I have a sales guy on my team that's only 25, and what he uses, I mean, he is so embraced in technology. Even I'm like, hey, a human touch sometimes just feels normal. Like,
Right.
so there's definitely a spread across generations on the comfort level of technology. But I think that the younger can learn from the older, and the older can learn from the younger. I think that there's a good piece there when we go into these agencies and you see the younger generation versus the older generation, and making sure that they both feel comfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, is that the younger can learn from the older.
Yeah.
Uh, because they, you know, I think the older really understand how things work, and they've done it for so long. They can anticipate the pitfalls.
Mhm.
There's probably, you know, sort of a, a tendency for younger folks to embrace technology maybe even too quickly, right? For the sake of using
Yeah.
technology versus making it something that really is going to help move the needle, you know, for the organization that's implementing it. So I do think that sort of push and pull between the
Yeah.
generations, if you will, is healthy and important.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Josh, this has been awesome. Is there anything else that you think that we haven't touched base on that would be something that the audience should know about?
No, I think it was great. I think we covered all the points, and we just have to get back to work and really focus on infrastructure. And if we do, I think the country will be better, our society will be better, and we'll all be better.
Absolutely. So, Josh, for everyone on this podcast, what's a way that they can get in touch with you and your company?
Yeah, so we're, you know, Cartegraph, and our website's cartegraph.com, and we're available on all the social channels. And our marketing department's terrific at pushing out content that I think is really useful for the industry and useful for people who work in it. So hopefully you'll enjoy it and get some benefit out of it, and we look forward to hopefully connecting with people.
Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe you guys are at UCT and you could show me around Nashville if you come down that way.
Yeah, I get there a lot. Happy to do that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
look in.
thank you guys. Josh, I so appreciate this. I have been missing my Reline unknowns. I haven't got to do a lot in the last year. You are my first virtual Reline unknown. So this was fun though. I mean, I've been doing virtual Reline lives for a year now. So this is great to actually do a full podcast virtually though.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks.
Take care.